I've been asked to make a video about lighting and materials in Blender, and sort of specifically with respect to this Gibson Les Paul that I modeled, I don't know, maybe a year ago or something like that. And the truth is, I'm not very good at lighting, and I'm not very good at materials. As you know, with Blender, and with any probably 3D package that's got so much stuff in it, there is a lot to learn. The modeling, and I'm not very good at modeling. Texturing, I don't even start talking about that. Lighting and rendering, you know, compositing, animating, these kind of things. I've focused for the last, I don't know, I've been doing Blender, I guess, for a couple of years, just on and off. I'm very busy with my daughter. And by the way, if you've seen me on my channel, I'm really a musician. All right, that's just having a new daughter and another baby on the way, by the way. I've tended to focus on doing the Blender stuff because music takes a lot of energy, and it's noisy. And at nighttime, when my daughter's sleeping, I wanted to find another hobby, and so you know, I consider myself to be a bit artistic, and so Blender, the 3D stuff, was great, and I really focused on modeling, and you know, not so much the material stuff or texturing, and then with respect to lighting, by the time I got to that point, I often just plunk a couple of lights in there and hope it looks okay, because I'm happy I got through the modeling. So nevertheless, I was asked if I would do this from a beginner's point of view, and that's really where I am with this, but I'll show you what I would do. So this is the Les Paul that I modeled, and there are better ways of doing this, and things that I could have done differently. It's rather faceted here, and that's because there is no subdivision surface on there or here, but it is what it is, and so if you are just starting out in Blender, hopefully don't get frustrated. I mean, you're going to get frustrated, but don't let it get you down too much. Just do what you can do and have fun and progress. That's what I would say anyhow, and that's what I'm doing as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this. So if I just come over to a default scene in Blender, note my screencast keys are on, what I want to do is I want to get rid of to deselect everything. I'm going to select my cube and I'm going to delete the cube. I'm going to bring that guitar in to this file. So I'm going to go File, Append, and then I need to find it. Now I happen to have that open, all right? Here it's under Gibson Les Paul tutorial scene, I guess. And I'm going to go to Object, and it's Guitar 001, so Append from Library. So there's the guitar, and it's all one piece. This is not ideal for applying materials to it, but I believe that as I brought the guitar in from another file, the materials have been brought in as well, as you can see. Now, however, I get some weird stuff here because I tend to want to work in cycles. So I'm going to switch to cycles render, and I'm going to come back to the camera icon there, and I'm going to switch on my GPU compute so I can use my video card. If I go back to the materials, you'll see that I have some materials already in here. Well, I don't actually have a lot, so that's probably a good thing because I want to talk about creating that. If I'm going to set the camera up, so I'm going to hit N, and I'm going to go lock camera to view, and I'm going to press the 0 key and look through the camera, and I'm going to hit the home button to maximize that view, and it's going to move it a little bit. Now, so I'm looking through the camera at the guitar, which right now I believe we can switch over, by the way, here to the material. Okay, normally we start off in solid. I can click material, and I see that the black material is applied throughout. If I want to render this, just a quick preview render, and I click rendered here, or Shift Z or Shift Z, it looks very dark. In terms of lighting, I'm going to hit 0 to get out of camera view. You can see my camera right there. There's a light, and it's set as a point light right now. Now I'm going to actually switch that to a sun, and I think if you are just starting, sort of like me. A sun is probably a good thing to use. Now, if I just do that and I go press 0 to go back into camera view, you can see that it looks like it's pointing right at it. The thing about a sun is it casts light like our regular sun, sort of everywhere, and it doesn't matter really how close or how far away from the object is, just like the sun, all right, in general. When the sun comes up in the summer versus the winter time, depending on where you live in the world, you don't really perceive a difference in the brightness other than day and night. But you know, as the Earth rotates, you know, when you get day and night, the position alters the amount of light. So it's sort of the rotation. So if I just go Shift Z now, nothing has really changed. Now, this sun is rather small. Now, I'm going to leave this in rendered view. I'm just using the shortcut to get there. And I'm going to change the size to something like, say, 3. And now we see a little bit happening here. I'm also going to click on Use Nodes. And it's going to act as an emission. That means the sun is going to give out light. It's going to emit light. Color, yeah, everyone says don't use white, so all right, fine, we'll switch this to a little bit yellowish. But you can see the strength here is 1. I'm going to switch, I'll try 5. Let's see how that looks. Now, you wouldn't render that as a final image or anything, but we're starting to get some light. And I want to show you something else that I would do before I even think about materials. I'm going to hit 0 to come out of the camera view, and I'm going to go Shift Z to go back to just my 3D workspace. I'll put down a plane for like the ground. So I'm going to go Shift A, Mesh Plane, and I'm just going to go S, and I'm going to scale. I'm just going to pull it out like that. If we go back to the camera view, I haven't applied any material. It would look like this. All right, it's not so bad. I'm starting to see some shadows and stuff like that. Shift Z again. With the plane selected, I'm going to click on New for materials, and I don't need to go into this thing called the node editor. I can just choose a color right here. I'm going to leave it as diffuse for now. I'll choose a color and I'll make it, say, green, but I'll make it darker or something. We'll just see what that looks like. Okay, it's going to look like that, just so that we can see the guitar. Okay, now, you can click this icon here, which is the world, and you can change the color of the background. Let me see if I can get out of here, see if we can see it. I don't know if we can, but I'm going to click Use Nodes anyhow. And I can change this to be lighter. You see that? And already that has changed the light in my scene. I can see the guitar a lot better. Here, I'll do this while we're looking. Black and light. So, you know, you can change the color of the world that way. But I'm going to hit Shift Z. We can also do something else. We can put in like environmental lights, and I'll show you what I'm talking about for that. It's great for outdoor scenes, but it's also good for indoor scenes once I get the materials going a bit better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split my screen. I'm going to grab these angled lines. I'm going to pull it across like this. So I've got 2 windows, and with my cursor over here, I'm going to hit T. That'll close this panel. It's in the way. T. With my mouse cursor over here, I'm going to close this one, T as well. Okay, so this is both the same thing right now. I'm going to click this box, and this is where you choose your view. I'm going to switch this to Node Editor. And now this panel shows up. So the one on the left is with T, and the one on the right is with N. I'm going to close that. Okay. Right now, the plane is selected. So this is just showing the material for the plane, which is just a diffuse color that is green. And I can change this here. I can make it darker. You see the way you saw that. And I can make it lighter. And once again, remember, with respect to the down here, well, the guitar or the plane, I am in material view. If I was in solid, I wouldn't see those colors. All right, I'm in material. And don't worry about this stuff. I clicked on the guitar. If I click on the guitar, when I click on it, you can see some of the nodes. In fact, get rid of that one because that wasn't doing anything that I used for the material. So we'll talk about that later. What I really want to do though is I'm going to hit the camera and Shift Z with my cursor over here so I can look at this. All right. I'm going to bring the color back down a little bit darker. Sort of where it was, like that. You can see the dark background out there. And I'm going to click on this globe here, the world, or the universe, whatever. and I guess it's world. And you can see some nodes. Now, if you are just a beginner, don't panic. Just kind of follow the steps. Then they're not hard, and then just over time, you know, you'll get the hang of it more. And I'm not that good at it anyhow. So I'm going to choose Add Texture, Environment Texture, and just bring it up over there. I want to put a texture, really an image on the environment, on the world, not on the guitar or on the plane. So I'm going to connect this color dot. I'm going to click on it and pull and click it to this yellow dot and let go. And what happens now, I'll zoom in a little bit more, is you see sort of a pinkish purple color, and you can see purple or pink back here. That's the default for when there's no image chosen. But you can already see that it lightens up a little bit if I like disconnect this. Just check it out. It's a bit darker. Connect it a bit lighter. So this is going to create some light, but it's not. I'm not going to choose something that's pink or purple. I'm going to actually choose an image that's got some brightness to it. So I'm going to click Open, and at this point you've got to navigate on your computer to where you've stored something called HDR textures. And you can click that button there so you can see thumbnails of it, or this is like list view, and this is a thumbnail view. And I just got these off the internet, and some of them work okay and some of them don't. If I choose, say, this one, if I click on this, you can see I'm choosing a nice bright thing. I'm not going to choose this. These are just other textures. If I hit Open Image and we look at this, well, you can start to see actually some grass in the background, and it's changed the guitar. Here, let me take it off. It's a bit darker. It's a bit lighter. Now, I can scroll around and you can find a position where like the sun is hitting it, or the light from this image is hitting it better. The good thing about these images is if you have a shiny material, a little bit shinier than this, you can start to see reflections from the image, from the world in this, so it looks more realistic. Especially, let's say, if you got like I don't know, silverware, pots and pans in your kitchen, and the glass and stuff. You see reflections of stuff, and that's one way that you can do that. So this environment texture provides more light, and you know that with the sun that I had there. And again, here I should show you that we can. If I select the sun, we go back to Shift Z. If I just go R and I just rotate it, we might be able to see the effect on the guitar. Okay, I don't know how well you can see that. I'm just rotating there. See the sun on there, right? So I'm just rotating. I'm not moving the position farther, closer or farther. That's not going to affect it. Just the rotation, sort of like day or night. Where do I want the sun? So you can find a spot that you like and do that. So maybe I like it there. I'm going to close this for a moment so we can see this a bit better. I'm going to drag on here till I see the arrow, and I'm going to release. And there's the guitar. All right, now, if I do, let's check my render settings. Click on the camera. I just want to make sure they're not set too high. I think I'm set 128. Okay, that's fine. If I just go F12 right now, we'll do a quick render. Keeping in mind, right now the guitar has one material on it, that black. I can show you how I made that black. And if you want your guitar to be all black, that might be all that you need. And that might be a decent enough lighting setup for you, or maybe not. You can add more lights, and we can try to do that. But really, it's hard to see just a completely black image, even if we use more lights. So what I'll do is we'll have a look at that black and escape out of that, and Shift Z to go back to there, and 0 to get out of camera mode. We'll have a look at that material. All right, so I'm going to split the screen again, and we are going to go into the node editor again here, hit N to close that, and with the guitar selected, so that this black material is selected, and I'll make other materials just like this, so you'll see how I made this. All right, you can see there are nodes down here. Now perhaps I could even just delete these. All right, and there's, you know, you can get rid of that even, and there's like nothing. All right, so let's even see if I can delete that completely. All right, we're starting from scratch. All right, if I hit Shift Z, it's just, and that's a very cool effect, by the way. And this stuff here, that's the environment texture. All right, so when you frame your camera shot, you want to try to avoid that unless you want that in your image. Let's say I've got it right there. All right, so there's my guitar, and now we're going to make the material. So I got the guitar, not the plane, I got the guitar selected, and I'm going to make a new material. So I'm going to make sure I'm on the Materials tab, which is this circle here, and I'm going to click New, remembering I'm in Cycles Render, and click New. And right away it puts down a default color. Now it doesn't look much different than the way it was. It's just chosen a color, and it says diffuse, okay, just general color. If I click on that and I scroll down, I can change how that looks. I can go different colors. Okay, I'm just going to go basically white in the middle. And I do want this. Actually, I'm going to get rid of this because what do I want? Yeah, I think I want a mixture of diffuse and glossy. So I'm going to. You see, this panel here is essentially a duplicate of the node editor. But you can do more stuff in the node editor than here. You can do some simple stuff here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make this color here and make it darker like that. I could do the same thing here if I wanted to. All right, I want it darkish. I don't need to have it black like that. Okay, we're close to where we were, but it's a lot more flat. It's not very shiny. There's no gloss to it. So I'm going to add another node. These are called nodes. I'm going to add another node, which would be like a rectangular box. I'm going to go Add or Shift A, which is the shortcut. And I'm going to come down to Shader because these are shaders. And I'm going to choose Glossy. I'm going to and it's already selected when you bring it in. You can move your mouse around. I'm going to click there, drop it. Nothing's happened yet because it's not connected by one of these noodles or little wire-like things yet. I'm going to click and pull this out a little bit because we're going to be adding something. I need to mix these together like paints, like black and white, if those are the colors I stick with. I need to mix them together. So I need something called a mix shader. So I'm going to go Shift A, Shader, Mix Shader, and it's already attached. We'll just drop it here for the moment. All right, you'll notice that there are two little spots here that say Shader. All right, I'll zoom in a little bit. Shader, and something called FAC. We won't worry about that yet. So I'm going to use this to connect this and this. And a simple way to do this is once I've got one set up, I can just take this and carry it over and drop it, and it will automatically connect on its own. So the diffuse, the color essentially, the wire is coming out into this first green dot where it says shader. Okay, so this is the black shader that we saw before. If I grab from here, I click and I pull, I get a wire, and I click to this bottom one and let go, you can see things have changed. All right, now it's kind of shiny there, isn't it? And that's a very cool effect right there if you like that. And because it's light, there's kind of enough light, I think, for a decent render. But that's not what we're going to go for. We want it to be still black but shiny. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually change the color of this. I'm going to bring it down till it's blacker, like that one. And I can also adjust how much of each of these I want to be affecting. So if I take this part here and I slide it down there, I get more of this one than this one. And if I slide it past 0.5, I get more of this one than that one. I'm going to leave that at 0.5 though. And that's pretty good. I can also play around with the roughness here for the glossy. I can change this to say 0.1 and just watch. And it gets shinier. And now if I turn this so that I turn this so that it gets more light. Let me stop that. There we go. All right, let's get back to the guitar. I'm just trying to find a spot where you'll see more light bouncing off it. Well, it's close enough. If I try, let's say 0, look at that. All right, 0.02. Okay, so now it's looking black and shiny. And I'm just tilting it to adjust the camera, which essentially will affect where the sun is, point towards the sun or away from the sun a little bit more. But anyways, that is now my black, and you can see the preview right here. I mean, it's a bit more black plasticky, but I kind of like that. I can try taking this down even more. Get a darker black. Okay, so I can then come over here and pull this out a bit, and under this materials 0.002, I can either double click there, or I can click right there, and I can just call this black. Okay, so there we go. So there's our black material. Now, this guitar is not just black. It's got some chrome or silver type stuff like the bridge and that. And so let's work on that. And so what I'll do is I'm going to go Shift Z. I'm going to go out of rendered view, and I'm going to sort of focus in. I know I'm in camera view, so I'll just reset this later. And I'm going to make a new material. Okay, I'm going to do it for the bridge there. So I'm going to click this plus button, and you can see we're back to nothing. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click new, and it puts on the default nodes. I'm going to do a very similar thing. Or am I going to do it that way? Because I'm looking for metal, probably the best way to do metal is not with diffuse at all. So I just clicked and deleted, just Shift A, just with a glossy. So I'll try this. I'm going to connect this to the surface, the color to the surface. And I don't see anything yet. Is that all I want to do, or do I want to do more? Well, let's try it and see how it goes. I'm going to call this, I'll call it metal. And in order to apply it, I'm going to go into my object. I'm going to go into edit mode, and I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to start selecting a piece. And a good way to do this is in vertex selection. Select a piece of the object that I want to have as that material, and go Control L, and that will select all of the linked parts to that. Let me get out of camera view. All right, just so I can see that I'm not affecting my camera so much, and the camera's in the way. I often put my camera on another layer. So as you can probably see, I've got all of this part selected. Now, if I click on the metal, and I've got that selected, I click Assign, it's changed its color. All right, let's come back out, and you can see there's that color on there. If I want to view through my camera and do Shift Z, okay, that's starting to look a little bit like metal. All right, and I'll show you something cool about the environment texture in a bit, but we need to do some more. So I'm going to go Shift Z, and I'll go back into edit mode. I'm in the wrong object. I'm on the guitar. And we get out of camera view too. I need to select these bullets. So select one vertex and go Control L. Hold Shift, select another part, go Control L. I got a string, so I'm not going to do that. Although the strings will be that color. Control L. I guess I got a string as well. That doesn't matter. The bolt, Control L, and then let's go. Let's get these strings at the same time. Holding down Shifts, select one vertex or any part of just the strings. And then go Control L with your mouse over here. Control L. And I get all of that. I want them all metal, so make sure metal is selected. Click Assign, and it will assign that color to there. Back into object mode, and let's go to the camera view, and let's zoom out like that. And look at the guitar like that. Shift Z. All right, so I'm starting to apply that metal-like material onto the guitar. So now, I'm doing this because those parts were joined in the model. When I brought that guitar in, the volume knobs, the bridge, the pickups, all of this was one piece. If you're creating a model and you're doing multiple pieces, it's a good idea as you create those separate pieces or separate objects to give them a material, even just a base material. You don't have to go through all these node stuff, just a quick material that's independent or using the same material on different parts so that you don't have to do what I'm doing. So for example, I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to go into edit mode, get out of camera view, and I'm going to come in and try to get this part of the bridge. So I'm going to select a piece there, shift and select a piece, and select a piece of that. Let's go Control L and see what we got. Okay, we don't have any of this part. Control L. Let's go Assign on the metal. And I know that there's a bit more. I'm going to select that and hit the period key and zoom in. Select a piece of that, a piece of this. I just have to get one piece of that, a piece of that, and a piece of that. And Control L, it'll select everything linked together. Assign, I should have everything there. Back into object mode, and let's have a look at that. Well, we'll do it through the camera. Just right there, Shift Z. Okay, now, while I'm viewing this, I might say, that doesn't look like metal at all. I can change the color. I can make it a little bit darker if I want. I can also, what can I also do? Let's see, if I look at the black, I just diffuse in that. Metal. Let's leave it like that for the time being. Let's carry on. Okay, so select the guitar again and go in, and let's do these volume knobs. Select a piece, a piece, a piece, a piece. Control L. Let's go ahead and make them metal. However, I don't think I want them all like that exactly. I want to put a piece of, I want to put some black at the top, so I'm going to come back out, go into edit mode, and in face selection, I'm going to select just this top face, holding shift, and then I switch back to black, and then I'm going to go assign, and I'll come back out. Okay, so we're starting to get this now. Let's see how similar it is to that. Okay, silver with some black. Okay. Now the thing that I wanted to mention to you about the environment texture is that, I don't know if you can, how well you can see it. I can make this a bit smoother, but you might be able to almost see reflections of the sky in there and the green from the trees and some from the ground, from the plane here as well. And that's what's cool about using the HDR, the environment lighting. I'm trying to get to a position where you could sort of see. Ideally, the best way is to have other objects in the room that are reflected in your chrome or your steel. But if you can't do that, you can use the environment lighting to light up the scene, but also to create some sort of reflections in your metal-like stuff. One thing I wanted to show you that I can do is I can smooth this a bit because it is a bit faceted here, right? So I'm going to go Shift Z. Okay, you can see it there. So if I go into edit mode, if I select a piece of that and go Control L, I can then, and let me just pull this over a bit more. I'm going to go T to bring up the side. And while in edit mode, there's no just smooth here, as though if I go back to object mode, you can see smooth there for everything. But if I want to smooth this, you go into shading UVs and then you choose faces, edges, vertices. You're going to choose edges and you hit smooth. You may have seen a change there, right? I'll go back, sharp and smooth. Now if I come back out, okay, no, first of all, notice it's smoother. Let's have a look at that and just go Shift Z. I don't know how well you can tell the difference. You can certainly tell it up here. Okay. But I don't really want the top to look like that. I want it to be flatter, so I'm going to go back in. And I'm going to Shift Z there. And I'm going to select this top face. And I'm just going to go back to flat. Did that do it? I believe it did. Yeah, I like that a little bit better, that look. So I could go, I keep doing that in, there I am. I could go through in, for all of these, Control L, and did I make the metal? I think I already did make the metal. I think I did the same thing. Make the blacks top, and the top's black. Did I say make the blacks top? I think I did. Boy, Control L, and I can go smooth for that, but this top part, I want flat. I'm going to hit T to close that and come back into object mode and we can have a look. All right, so The other thing that I could do that might make it a bit more realistic for this metal is, let's go to the metal again, and then we'll try this while that's running like that. Zoom in a bit. I could do something similar to with the black, okay? A diffuse, a glossy, a mixed shader, and I think I'm going to do that right now. This is probably a better way to do this. Well, there's more things you can do for sure, but I'm going to go Shift A, shader, and a mixed shader. I'm going to put that in. But I'm going to drag this down to the second spot because I'm going to use also a diffuse shader here. I'm going to bring into the top. So I got the two. It's pretty similar. I could maybe make this a little bit darker, or you can mess around with some highlight colors, you know, if you really want to, that kind of thing, or a little bit bluish or something. But the other thing I just wanted to add to this, and then again, you also have to decide, maybe that's not 0.05, maybe it's not shiny enough. Maybe you need it like that, or 0.02, back to that kind of thing. I'll render this in a bit. What I want to do is Shift A, shader, input, Fresnel, and connect this where it says FAC, F-A-C. I'm going to connect that to F-A-C there. And that's generally a good thing to do, but I may or may not like that. We'll see. All right, let's try F12. Yeah, it's looking shiny, but not exactly what I want. I'm gonna cut that. And go there, and there's quite shiny now that I've got that in there. And let's try a quick F12. That might be too much. Right, I feel like I'm definitely getting reflections of here. Look, I can see that. I can see some trees or ground, and there's some sky. So that's the benefit again of that environment texture for both lighting and reflections. And that's basically how I would, I'm not saying I would keep these materials for those knobs. I may have done something else on the side, or not smoothed them, but I would go through and find all the screws and do that kind of stuff once I've got my metal and my black. And for example, if I want, get a camera view for now, Shift Z, this piece right here, I'm going to select all that, Control L, and I'm actually going to pull it in a little bit. I want it there like that. I'm going to make that metal. So select it all, metal, come back out, go back into camera view, and just try to Shift Z. You know, and now that piece is metal. And I would go through and I'd select all those parts. The other thing I wanted to show you was once the materials are there, I'll close that up. It now looks brighter than when it was all dark, and I didn't change lighting for that. But you could still come over to the world, click it there, and you can see that we are using an environment texture. It's sort of mimicking the node editor, and the strength is 1. Now watch what happens if I make this 0.1. Okay, it's darker, or if I make this 2. So you can affect how bright your environment texture is as well. And I think that the default is 1, and that's just fine. So you can do that kind of thing. Now obviously I haven't put all of the colors in here. That's the way that would work. I'm going to open this up though, and I'm going to make this like 0.1. And I can do a quick render of this, what I would do, obviously I would make them all the colors that I want them to be. And just like I showed you here, and then I would come over to render, as long as I like the lighting as it is, and really all I've used, by the way, is the sun. All right, and on the sun, I changed the color a little bit, and I adjusted the strength. I made it a sun. I made it a bit bigger, 3, 4, 5. That's about it. All right. Not looking at any of the other lights right now. Just with the sun and with the environment lighting, I got the effect that I wanted. All right, looking through the camera, that's good enough for me, and I would put the materials on all the different parts I want. If I needed to make another color, all right, I could just hit the plus, and I could hit new, and I could just start again, okay, in the node editor, and I could make another one. I could hit the minus, I could get rid of that, and then I would come over to render. Let's go Shift Z. I hit the camera, and I would most likely change the resolution up to 100 or 90 or whatever size you want, however big you want it. And then I would come over to sampling, change the render to how much as you want. Probably 250 would probably be enough for this. And depending on if you have a good version, in a 2.79, you could click here and you could choose denoising. That will help your rendering, and won't worry about any of the other settings for now. That would probably be okay. And then I make sure I saved, and I would hit F12, and it would take a little while to render that, and hopefully it would look okay. All right, so we'll just let it render through. And what it'll do is it'll go through it, and then it'll go back over some spots, and it'll clean up the noise, and that will be that. Now this is not a nice background. Maybe you want it a little bit more reflective, so it's a bit glassier, or whatever we could see. So I'll just pause it there, and then we'll come back and we'll see the final render. All right, well, I've rendered up to that point, and I've decided that I don't like it. It looks a little bit too blown out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Shift Z, and I'm going to move my camera around, maybe, and try to find a position that I like, or I can move lights. All right, so if I wanted to, I can hit 0 and Shift Z, and I can select that light and go back into my camera view, Shift Z. I'm going to hit R to rotate that sun. Give it a minute to update and see where I like it. Yeah, see, that's where it was too blown out. I think I like it there, but I think I want to do, let's see. Oh, I might want to try it there. And then this part's showing, but I can just go S, select the plane and go S, and I could try that. Maybe I like that angle. It's a bit of a weird angle. Let's see what that looks like. When you end up rendering, rendering, but I mean, it doesn't take all night or anything if you're just doing small scenes, and then you can tell pretty quickly if you like it. Obviously, I have some issues with my modeling here. I should have had a subdivision surface there, some kind of smoothing, and I didn't. But I mean, again, it was early on in modeling this stuff, and I certainly wasn't any good at modeling the neck. I've tried to choose angles where you can't tell very much, but we're just having fun here. We're not taking it too seriously. I'm not trying to sell this to anybody. I just want to enjoy myself, but I want it to look all right. I've got pretty soft shadows here with my sun. You can get harsher shadows with smaller sized lights or hemis, that kind of thing. And again, I'm not crazy about the angle. I would just keep going until I got the best angle. And with respect, in this kind of setup, again, I'm using the same kind of nodes, and I've got an environment texture there. I don't know if you can see a little bit of like trees and sky, and I just have my lights positioned, the relatively soft shadows, I think, you know, a little bit less shiny, a little bit more flat, you know, shaded kind of, but still with a glossy on there. And that's how I got that, you know. So if I wanted to keep experimenting with that, I could take this black and I could come back over here. And do I have the guitar selected? There's that. And what have I got? It's the glossy. Where's the black? There's the black. All right. And I could, on the glossy area, 0.05. Maybe it's too shiny. And sometimes it's nice when you just turn it all the way around. Am I missing a string? No. All right, well, I think you get the gist of it anyhow. Yeah, so experimentation. Hope that helps.